and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Karen.
Mayor Watson,
Present.
Vice Mayor Earl,
Present.
Councilman Johannes,
Present.
Councilman McCowen,
Here.
Councilman Reinhardt.
Here. Public comments.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. My name is Tom Matthew, I'm Branch County Commissioner. With the God's help, I will be representing you in this part of area. And many of you I know, I may not know you in close, but I plan to work with you. And if you have any comments or reason to help from the county board, I am one of your liaison. And before I go further, I want to thank our beloved Commissioner Coach, one of you. He served here many years as mayor and many other capacities. So I want to thank him publicly for his outstanding work. We will miss you. I cannot follow his shoes, as we say, but I'll attempt to. I'm a Notre Dame graduate. I'm a father of 4 children and 2 grandchildren, 1 on the way. I'm only allowed 3 minutes, so I don't want to tell all about my family. But you are my family. I just want to give you a little thought about. I am here to serve you. So my number is listed, and if you need it, every month I send out my monthly reports. If you would like to receive, if not, I shall send it to the clerk. She can put it in your packets. So I am delighted to be here. I have been here with my wife here for the musicals and everything before even I thought about running for office here. So thank you for the opportunity, and it is good to see a little mayor over there, future mayor, and thank you. Again, my name is Tom Matthew. My number is 937-524-9663. That is cell phone 24 hours. You can reach anywhere in the world. If you happen to go to Poland, India, Africa, anywhere. So again, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to serve you whatever time the good Lord gives us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can say that Mr. Matthew was a very listening ear for the county commission when we were having the 911 issues, and I appreciated him very much. Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment?
My name's Alyssa Temple. I'm the chiropractor's wife here in town. This is my first meeting, but I heard it's a meeting to talk about chickens. I would love to have chickens. We can get that because my kids would love it and I would love it.
Any others?
I'm also a resident here in Bronson. My name's Carrie Winwright. I'm really hoping that you guys will consider the chickens, but I'm hoping that there will be a lot of restrictions involving those chickens. So that's what I'm here for today.
On to presentations.
Great to see
Jeff Berry is here tonight from the city's auditing firm, Cambridge and Company, and he's going to give you a brief rundown on the FY 2022 audit.
Tried to cut some out, because I had to have a little bit for one other area this year. Each year, the city is required to have an audit of their financial statements filed with the Michigan Department of Treasury under state law and to support the requirements of the city's debt obligations. I think everybody has the reports. If you could turn to page 1. The primary product of an audit is the auditor's report. The second paragraph here is the important one where we state our opinion. This year's opinion is that the financial statements conform with generally accepted accounting principles. This is known as a clean opinion, which is the best type of opinion you can receive on your financial statements. Please turn to page 17. The first column here represents the general fund, which is the primary operating fund of the city. On June 30th, the general fund had assets totaling $1.9 million, liabilities of $644,000, leaving a fund balance of $1.3 million. Just turn a couple pages to page 19. You will see the changes in the fund balance. For the general fund, revenues totaled $1.4 million, with the main sources being property taxes of $545,000, and intergovernmental revenues, which would be state revenue sharing, essential services payments, those totaled $588,000. These total revenues decreased by $42,000 from the prior fiscal year. Expenditures for the general fund were $1.2 million, of which $558,000 was for public safety. Total expenditures increased by $59,000 from the prior fiscal year. The total increase in fund balance for the general fund was $96,000. Overall, the general fund balance is currently healthy, which is necessary to help absorb future projects and unexpected expenditures. We can now turn to page 22. Here we'll see the operations from the proprietary or business type funds, utility funds, what you might call them. Here we see the wastewater fund reported a bottom line surplus of $397,000, was able to cover all its depreciation expense, and by doing so was able to pay its debt obligation for the year. The remaining debt obligation for the wastewater fund is $242,000. The water fund had a surplus of $532,000, also covered all its depreciation, and by doing this, it allowed $89,000 to be an increase in cash and investments for future system replacements and upgrades. So far, what I've gone through have been what we call the modified accrual, which is the method the city uses for day-to-day operations. The other set of financials are the full accrual, which is like how for-profit companies present their financials. Page 15 here, really what it does is we have to book like the fixed assets, long-term debt, pension liability. Really all I'm looking at here though is that all the net positions for every category are positive, which means the balance sheet is not over leveraged with debt or other liabilities for the city. Page 44, this is going to be about the pension. The city's pension liability decreased by $95,000 this year as it continues forward to being fully funded. Currently, the city's pension is 78% funded. I think the state recommendation now is 60 to 70. Brandon, you just filled that out. I think that's what it is now.
I think the minimum threshold is 60.
Yeah, so you guys are ahead of pace there, which is good. Towards the bottom of this page, there's a sensitivity analysis. I like to look at this. The middle column shows that MERS currently uses a 7.25% discount rate, which is the expected long-term rate of return in these calculations. So we can see the net pension liability right now is $525,000. What also is presented here is if that discount rate were to go up or down 1%, what the effect would be. A 1% decrease would cause the net pension liability to raise to $867,000, while a 1% increase in the discount rate would make the liability fall to $236,000. So it's quite a swing, just 1%. That's what hit a couple of years ago because they changed the percentage and it made most people's pension look bad for the year. The new item this year, due to a large federally funded street project, the city was subject to a single audit. A single audit requires various controls and compliance testing. The report on the single audit is on page 62. Here we indicate that in our opinion, the city was in compliance with the requirements of each federal program it was subject to. And this is the first single audit I can remember the city having. I don't know if had them 25, 30 years ago, but I'd like to point out on page 65, near the bottom of the page in section 2, and I point this out because people then come across it, they actually look through it and think, oh, there's findings. And these findings are the same findings the city has always had: lack of ideal segregation of duties. We assist with the preparation of the financial statements. And I just want to point out that these are what would be expected. Every audit I work on, and I think every audit our firm works on, has these same two findings in them. They're expected. Neither of these findings had any negative impact on the opinion, as the regular audit opinion and the single audit opinion were both clean audit opinions, unqualified. Overall, the audit process went well. I'd like to thank Lori, Brandon, and especially Karen for their assistance during the audit. And I'd like to thank you all for entrusting Cambridge & Company with the annual audit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Consent agenda.
Just one resolution on there, a standard annual MDOT performance resolution that we need to do every year to be able to apply for permits. That's all I have.
So approving the consent agenda approves that as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Do you have any questions or concerns on the consent agenda? Do we have a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have support?
I'll support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. New business.
Yeah, the first item is urban chickens discussion. At the previous meeting, I was asked to add the topic of urban chickens to the agenda for council discussion. To help with that discussion, I drafted a pros and cons list, which was included in your packet, and was based on research from the statewide managers listserv and various articles online.
What questions or concerns that we have up here on the chicken discussion?
Well, I feel that councils prior to now had problems with animals in town as general. Whether it was a horse, a cow, pig, but I know chickens were part of it. And they deemed it necessary to make this ordinance, and I don't think we should go away from it. Right now, there are people who have chickens that are not permitted to, and they are running around some. I know the police department gets calls on them. We're gonna, if we do anything beyond where we're at right now, we're gonna run our police department running chicken patrol. I've been in towns where they've allowed chickens and they were all over the place. Everybody's yard. I know there's people that don't want cats and dogs in their yard, let alone chickens. So I truly think we need to leave it as it is.
I'm in agreement with you, Larry. I just think if we open it up for chickens, we're gonna open it up for something else, and I don't think we wanna go down that road. I'm concerned with, being loose. I'm concerned with, the smell in town that could be caused by that. I think there's too many cons against it, in my opinion.
I can't go with it. I think we're too close to down the bounds. We got, I had a coyote in our ear just a couple weeks ago, you know, so chickens draw in. I was 5 years in the police department, we got calls for like cats sleeping in people's yards. So you can imagine someone's dog or cats after chickens, and people start to think. I think at the beginning, everybody would follow through with it, you know, following the ordinance and those, but I think eventually would relax, and I think you would eventually have a lot going on that we don't really need.
I looked at it from a health perspective. You know, if there is a bird flu, or if there is a situation where, you know, one group of chickens gets sick, who's going to police, who's going to force, who's going to pay for the disposal of those birds if they do get sick? And there is guidelines out there that says, you know, if you have a chicken group here that gets sick, everything within a certain mileage is supposed to be destroyed. And I know before with the bird flu and the number of chickens and the cost factors that were involved in that, I see it as a public nuisance, and I would say no.
I disagree with all of you. I think that chickens should be allowed in town. I don't think that we should just overturn the rule and make it immediately available for people to get chickens, though. I think it would need researched, and I think it would need a committee to research it. I think we should table it for a couple months, let some people get together and figure that out if that's what they want to do, and then they can approach us in a couple months. But I don't think it's something that we should change tonight here, right on the spot. That's what I think. But there are a lot of cons, and if you sit and read them all, then it sounds terrible, but there's a lot of pros too.
Who's had chickens over by the Anderson School? Is that you guys? Or by Anderson? And the roosters were just going at it. Fine, and they were fine down there, nobody cared, but you start putting that into closing housing, you're gonna have complaints on that noise. I just see a lot of work going into our police department, a lot of people wanting to, you know, well, the dog got in for my chickens, or hey, the cat's after them, and my chicken's loose, and I think our police department just don't need a lot of this extra push on. Like I said, we were on duty, and we had one neighbor call because the neighbor's cat was in their yard, for God's sake, you know? It's just, that's gonna be one thing after another.
We get it all.
I
What's
believe
that?
it would be a lot.
We get a lot of chicken complaints
Oh.
already.
Are we able to speak out here on behalf of the chickens? Okay, somebody that's experienced with chickens, there is a lot of cons, I will agree to that. I think that if you guys are responsible to set an ordinance in place that would, have someone have to go and get a permit to have those, X amount of birds per family, there's a certain, you guys want it like a certain way, like so much space per chickens, a coop, it needs to be maintained, you take responsibility for those birds. We are a small knit community, we don't have a grocery store, not like technically a grocery store. My kids in 4-H, our mural on the wall shows a farm. We are a farm community. Why is somebody like Kalamazoo able to have chickens, but Bronson not? We can set laws that will keep it clean. Also, if you guys were to make it legal, that opens the door to somebody not following the rules to you actually doing something about it. That's all for me.
I think what you guys need to look at is you need to eliminate the issues with the chickens and forbid the issues with them and allow the chickens. You can start by a fenced yard mandatory, X number of chickens only, 5, 6 chickens, no roosters, you're not here for breeding.
Some of the yards still were fenced, excuse me, I know one yard was fenced in and chickens were still running around, you
Well,
know.
they should be clipped.
It just, who's gonna enforce all this?
I was
Who's
gonna,
who's
that's the
gonna,
thing, who's gonna police it?
who's gonna be,
Well, there should be a committee. in
who's gonna
place.
do the calls and who we gonna have? It's just,
You can set up a committee. You guys don't have to, but the community can actually do that for the ones that wanna do that. There can be a committee set up for that. And then if you look at the cold water ordinance, and I don't know if you're familiar with the cold water ordinance, are any of you guys familiar with it? No? I believe it's what, 25 feet property line?
Property lines.
It has to
And
be
it
set
in the
back, it
backyard.
has to be in the backyard, it has to be enclosed. No roosters, there's no exceptions to roosters. I know that we've had people with roosters here, but I think somebody took care of that, I'm not sure.
They had you for chicken and dumplings, they said?
Yeah, pretty much, so, we've got people here that actually live here, that is something that they actually grow, and they're not the same color as I am, and this is what they eat. I mean, this is their meat, and we weren't looking for anything from meat, we were looking for egg layers. So we are pro chicken, we're not pro zoo, and we're not pro farm animals that, you know, should be on a farm. But if you have the property and you can maintain it, and with a committee, I mean, common sense prevails. He was a police officer for 33 years, and I don't think you had a lot of chicken problems, calls for that. There are people that we can set up for committees.
Well, I think you can set up to let it police itself within that committee, where if somebody, and I agree with what she said, you set a licensing fee of
Yes,
something reasonable, but for the year, once you apply, then the chicken police will go out and inspect the property. Here's what you're gonna have to do, you don't have a fenced-in yard, fence your yard in, then they can inspect the chicken coop and keep things orderly. If Carrie gets X number of complaints, whatever we decided, then that committee would go out and pull that license, and you know, you're gonna get to have chickens.
right.
I'm also a firm believer, and it's nothing against anybody, but it should be only property owners,
Yes.
not if you're renting a house, because I
Right.
see a real issue there, because if they skip in the middle of the night, they leave their chickens, then this city's kinda stuck with them.
Right.
But, you know, we need to deal with these issues and not eliminate these chickens totally, because I'm also pro-chicken.
Well, at this point right now, there's an ordinance against it.
Mhm.
So I think, you know, it was brought up for discussion. And correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm speaking out of bounds here, but I believe if we're gonna do anything with this, it's again, I think, just like you said, let's table it for the time being, but put together a committee of some sort or a group that list all this and list the, you know, what are the
going forward.
restrictions, what are gonna be,
Yeah.
everything in here, and then bring it back to council to vote on again, but, at this point, I mean, I don't believe there's nothing that we're gonna do as far as make a discussion or an
Right,
agreement
no
or
decision
a
tonight.
motion tonight. I can,
You can't just say, let's have chickens. You got to have these boundaries. set.
Right.
And I agree with
Right.
what you're saying.
all those restrictions or whatever you're gonna have in place need to be listed and agreed upon, obviously by council, in order to have that happen.
That's something that has to go back to planning for.
that was kind of my thought too, shouldn't it
Yeah,
go back to
that's
the
right.
planning
We
commission
talked about
also?
that last month.
That's an option, or if you wanna handle it on the council level, it's up to you.
I would think that would be the normal step to take.
Take it to planning commission for that, yeah. I mean, I think.
And at that point, Chuck, if there's a citizens committee that is going to police this, there's no legal action they can take, period, correct?
That's correct.
So,
You'd have to have an ordinance, and again, you've got a several step process. You could certainly, the council could set up a committee, could refer back to the planning commission, the planning commission could set up a committee. That committee can be made up of members of the planning commission and the public, or the council and the public, or a combination of any of the things, make a representation of what the proposal is. And then we'd have to review it to make sure that whatever you're doing has the teeth in it to allow for enforcement. Because, you know, you see these TV shows with citizens arrests. I'm sorry, you can't do a citizen's arrest. There is no such thing. I love people who tell you that. But, you know, and it's usually the wackos that say, I'm gonna arrest you because you're violating my rights. You've gotta have it in the ordinance, you've gotta indicate who has the authority, how they have the authority, what the process is, just like you do for somebody who violates zoning, somebody who violates the traffic laws, somebody who violates the drunk driving laws, somebody who violates the trash ordinance. All that's gotta be laid out, so you've gotta have it structured. And there are, you know, municipalities, in this county, some municipalities permit it, some don't. And that's true in other counties, so it's something that probably, if I were recommending, I'd say kick it back to planning, have planning go forward with it. That's really a more appropriate place than the council committee. You guys approve what planning does. You shouldn't be stepping into their shoes. You should let them do their job. And planning can certainly solicit input from anybody they want to. They can set up a special committee to investigate it, to talk to other municipalities, to gather. You know, I'm thinking when Quincy went through this several years ago, they gathered ordinances from about 25 different communities and took a look at all of the different provisions. Now, they still do not permit chickens, and they did a lot of work on it. City of Coldwater, on the other hand, does permit chickens. Tell me why Quincy doesn't know what it does. I don't know. I can't, you know, it's gonna be your call